Theology Unplugged.
Hey friends, welcome to Theology Unplugged. I'm Michael Patton, and let's go ahead and get started with today's session. This is kind of like a week roundup. We got all kinds of things, and I'm trying something new today as well that I think is going to be fun. I have got a girl named Flavia, I think it is, Flavia Julia Constantina. I think that's her name, but she wanted to talk, and so she wanted to have a debate. So she's standing by. We're going to get back to her in just a minute. Now, as far as the week roundup, let me first start with this. As I have mentioned to you guys, I have had some knee problems recently. Yes, I still have the knee problems, but they're getting better. They're really weird. They're not normal knee problems. It's not like bone on bone or anything like that. It's a medial ligament, and at first we have thought it's been torn, but now it's really I can feel it on the surface of my skin as well. And then whenever I move my foot sideways in any way, it will hurt a lot, and then it'll pop and feel better for a little bit. And then after a while, it'll get aggravated and inflamed, and so we're not really sure what that is, but if you would pray for me, that would be great, because not only does that come about, but at the same time, for the first time, the middle of my back goes out. I know, getting old, but the middle of my back goes out. It's just not good timing. I don't know that any time's ever good timing to get injured or to get hurt, and I know it's going to get better, but just pray about that, because it has been keeping me down as far as unable to move. It's hard for me to even get right here. I'm not supposed to be moving at all so that I don't aggravate it. And since it is supposed to be a tear, I'm not supposed to move at all for 6 weeks. But things are changing with that. I'm not sure. I literally have a urinal beside my bed so that I don't have to walk to the bathroom. It's not fun. Trust me, it is not fun at all. But anyway, pray for me about that. Pray that we figure out what that is. I want to go right now and talk about what I have done this week a little bit. And, go to my Patreon and kind of roll through some of the things that I've done. Just briefly talk about them. For those of you who are not a member, you're not a member of my Patreon, I would love for you to become one. All you do is go to patreon.com/C Michael Patton. That is a great way to support this ministry, to support what I do. If you enjoy what I do, if you enjoy what I write. Other ways you can do it is if you want to give a one-time donation that's tax deductible, go to credoministries.org. That's the best place to go. That's the only place to go. Or you can just go straight to if you know the site, the donation site, but it's off of credoministries.org, so you're going to have to go through that. But anyway, so there is that, and it'll show you everything that I do. I mean, almost everything that I do. It's just, I wish I maybe did less and concentrated more on one area, but I do a whole lot of stuff, And one of the things that I do that I am concentrating on, that I have been focusing on very much this year, and I promise for the rest of the year at the very least to continue to focus on this, is my throughthechurchfathers.com, through the church fathers, called Patristic Pathways. Patristic Pathways, that's a good name, isn't it? But Patristic Pathways is my Through the Church Fathers in a Year. Go there. We're reading right now, and we're going through Justin Martyr, his dialogue with Trypho. I've got an advanced one where I'm going through the Constitution of the Apostles, which is a 4th century document, Pseudepigrapha document, falsely attributed document. In other words, somebody claimed it was from somebody, but it really wasn't. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But the Constitution of the Apostles, and it is a great document. It basically shows how in the 4th century Christians were trained. It shows how it is that, basically a Christian manual, a church manual, doctrinal statement, liturgy, how to conduct yourself as men, how to conduct yourself as women, how pastors are to conduct themselves. And it is really good and edifying. I love it. I know we've learned a lot since then. I know that it's not perfect. I know that there are problems, theological problems and practical problems as you read through it. But either way, there's just so much to glean from it. There's Every book, every person has their problems. I have my problems. You have to listen to everything with discernment. But you're going to the 4th century, and you're imagining yourself during that time with these great men and women of the past, and you are joining with them. Notice there you got John Calvin, you got right next to Calvin, of course, Arminius. Then you got Jonathan Edwards and Martin Luther in the back there, along with Erasmus. Is that no? That's Zwingli. That is Zwingli. Erasmus is sitting in the chair over there. He kind of got old all of a sudden. I mean, that's the best I could do there. And William Tyndale, and then all the way back by himself is Augustine. He shouldn't be by himself because he is the best. I mean, he's the greatest. He's my favorite theologian of church history, and becoming more so because we are reading through Augustine right now, and I can't get enough of Augustine, and everybody else can't get enough of Augustine. It's a fun group. Join us if you can. Join us if you will. I invite you. It's free, although you can support it. There's a way to support it there, or you can support it by becoming a patron. But anyway, that's not what I'm trying to do here. Just go to these places. Now, I'm testing out my new little places to go here. I'm not really sure where I meant to go next. Oh, yes, I am meant to go to my Patreon. Okay, so let's talk about a few things here. Let's talk about let's see if I can do this. Oh, there we go. That's one of the things I meant to do. Hello. That's a different view of me. This is a much cheaper camera, and it kind of sometimes seems a little bit better, doesn't it? This one is very expensive, and it's more professional and probably captures the more true version of me. This one here probably captures the less true version of me, and I like it better. Okay, so anyway, let's see here. This is what I wrote about this. I wrote a blog about Pseudepigrapha, and this has happened recently. I've had a change of opinion myself toward writings. Whenever you look through the early church, whenever you're going through something like the Apostolic Fathers, the post-Nicene or Nicene Fathers, what you will find is writings that are attributed to something like Second Clement. And I liked Clement. We read through Clement earlier this year on through the Church Fathers. We didn't read through Second Clement. Now, I kind of questioned myself at that time as well, because Second Clement, while we are almost positive was not written by Clement, although it could have been written by an amanuensis, but it just doesn't show up in a timely manner in order for us to attribute it to Clement. However, somebody took Clement's name because he was a popular figure in the early church, because he was an authoritative figure in the early church, because he already had the respect, and they took his name and basically, from our standpoint today, plagiarized him. Said, this is from Clement. It's a reverse plagiarization, this Pseudepigrapha, because you're claiming your writing is from Clement. And so I used to have a really bad, ultimately blanket bad attitude towards Pseudepigrapha. And what I wrote here is how I've changed my attitude based upon how I think I understand it different. I understand it differently because not all Pseudepigrapha is done with malintent. In other words, there is falsely attributed writings to someone where someone is simply trying to honor the name of that person, not reverse plagiarize them, but to honor their name. Now, whether or not that is ethical in your standards, it used to be absolutely blanket. No way you could do that in my standards. These people were bad. These people were evil. Why would we pick up a book that starts with a lie? But I've changed my attitude toward that because I've seen it more and more, and I've seen the quality of text. From the Didache to the Apostolic Constitutions, both of whom claim to come from the apostles through Clement for the Apostolic Constitutions, but we know they didn't. We know that it's just tradition that is bound up together. Now, basically, if you're saying this is the tradition of the church, this is the tradition of the 12 apostles, then you can see how they might pull that off. This is the tradition of Christianity, which is the 12 apostles, which is Clement as well, which is Ignatius as well. So people would take their writings, and I think we have to have a spectrum of acceptance whenever we look at this. Yes, some of them are very deceitful. And not only that, some of them, maybe they're not deceitful, maybe they're just dead wrong. They do not represent Christian tradition. We have that all over the place. And this is one of the reasons why whenever I first started with Pseudepigrapha, I rejected it all. You've got the Gospel of Thomas, you've got the Apocalypse of Peter, all of these being what are called Gnostic writings. And definitely these claim the name of a popular Christian figure in order to gain authority for their own writings, and it is a completely different philosophy from Christianity, and I figure they have to know it because it's so far distant. It does not have any apostolic lineage. It's something that comes out of the blue, doesn't represent the Jews of the Old Testament, doesn't represent the New Testament. And if you're going to pull that off, you got to do something like Marcion did, where he got rid of most of the New Testament and all of the Old Testament and reformed Christianity. And that was under the umbrella of Gnosticism. So you have big groups, big philosophies that'll use this in a very, very bad way. I put down here some examples, the good and the bad and the ugly. You got some valuable ones, which, as I mentioned, the Apostolic Constitution, Pseudo-Dionysius, the Areopagite, who didn't write this, but that is my absolute favorite. It could be my favorite, besides Augustine, early Christian writing. It's a mystical writing. I love the way he writes. I love the way he thinks, even though I do not believe he is right on the limitations he puts. It is so refreshing to see people stop before God and fear to tread theologically in his presence and to say, listen, be careful. That's basically what Pseudo-Dionysius does the whole time. I'm too scared to go there. I'm too scared to talk about that because I might misrepresent him. I love that. I do. I'm from the West. I grew up in a tradition where we overdefine everything. So whenever I see something like this, I love the contrast that it creates from what I am used to. But you know, some of the other examples, you got the second Enoch, or Enoch. I mean, maybe second Enoch would not be the best example, but Enoch would be a really good example because we know Enoch didn't do that. That's a good one. Second Enoch, we use that quite often as well. The Didache, teaching of the 12, like I said, we read through that. Epistle of Barnabas, we read through that as well. So we've already read through some Pseudepigrapha through the Church Fathers. Then we got the problematic ones, the Acts of Paul, the Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Peter, the Apocalypse of Peter, the Ascension of Isaiah. There are so many. These are called the Pseudepigrapha. There's a couple of books you can get, Old Testament Pseudepigrapha and New Testament Pseudepigrapha, and they are good ones to pick up. I should have gotten those and showed them to you, but anyway, they're really great to pick up. They don't have necessarily all of them, but the most important ones. I've got other works back here that have, I should have gotten these, but anyway, it's a good thing to read through because you see there is a value to reading the bad, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay, let's see here. What else do I have? Last time, remember, I talked about Is the Canon Really Closed? That was fun. That was through Theology in a Year. And I'm so glad we got that opened up. But guess what? You're not going to believe this. I opened my PowerPoint this morning because I actually was going to do another through Theology. I never can get this straight. Through Church Fathers in a Year, through Theology in a Year. Through Church Fathers in a Year is, well, they all can be found at my YouTube at credocourses.com. credohouse.com. Well, you may already be there. If you're listening to us, by the way, if you're listening to us on Spotify or on Apple, you can find us on YouTube. You can watch this. I usually try to upload this on Spotify so that you can watch this as well. But oftentimes I have problems. I'm only one man. I do way too much. And I sometimes forget to do certain things. One of these days, though, if you guys decide one day to join this ministry and you believe what I'm doing and you want to see the Credo House built and you want to see this animated theology put together, entire through through Theology in a Year animated. Just with graphics, and I love graphics, you know that. But anyway, if you want to see that, go to there. But that is something. But we do most stuff on, or I assume most people are watching through YouTube. I probably need to quit assuming that quite so much. But is the canon really closed? I started that, and today I got up, opened the PowerPoint, and you won't believe it. You're gonna guess. Yes, it was gone. Everything that I put together, because I put together 3 or 4 lessons at a time, and it takes me a long, long time. I used to think I could do one a day and get through it, and I haven't been able to, especially with all this other stuff. But it took me a long time, and I got 4 sessions ahead. And I was really proud because I'm liking the way this is going right now. I'm liking the way it started out. I think I'm going to be able to cover the canon in a much more significant way than I did before in the actual theology program. And it was gone. It was gone. Every edit. And, how did I open it? Well, I opened it by opening PowerPoint and then using the last one that came up that is on my OneDrive, because it automatically saves to my OneDrive. And I open it up, nothing there. Nothing what I've done recently. So I panic. I start looking everywhere. I look on my computer, and it just can't be found. It's nowhere. And so I am falling apart thinking, okay, I got to start all over with the canon. That's okay. I've had to do this before. Michael, calm down. And I have many times. But it doesn't happen much anymore because I got so many backups. I got so many ways. I do know what I'm doing whenever it comes to this kind of stuff. Whenever I'm creating, I do have backups there. But anyway, so I go there and I search one last place, and it is in my actual OneDrive. Dropbox, desktop, folders on my desktop, all these different places that I back them up to. None of them had it. But then I found it. I don't know how I found it. It was in my OneDrive, but for some reason, the OneDrive didn't open it up for the first time I opened it. So anyway, I don't know why I told you that whole story. I really like going through, is the canon closed? I know Constantina, that she is over there and she is waiting. I told her she may have to wait for a while, so she's just going to have to wait. It'll be just a minute. Okay, one more thing. The night, look at this. The night I was visited by demons. Now, a lot of you guys have read this one. That one was a fun one to make because I forgot a lot about the story. I forgot a whole lot about what happened that night. And it is a weird night. And you guys that know me, you know that I'm not much of a charismatic. I'm a very much want to be charismatic. This is not the kind of charismatic stuff I want to happen. I do not want to be visited by any evil forces. I don't want to feel like I'm being visited. I don't want to be paranoid about anything like that. I think I'm too critical. I am critical of that stuff, and usually it doesn't work out. Okay? Well, I do have a lot of weird beliefs. Ask my family. But one of them has not yet been to convert to charismaticism as much as I want to. I want to see the power and the work of God more evident ways. I want to see it in a normative way. I don't really see it very much. I'm talking about his interventive power. I understand. You got to understand that I'm not saying in any sense that I discount God. I think his presence is not there. I feel him very, very much the way that I feel him. And that's how each one of us does. And usually he's not going to change that in any big way. He's not going to change your personality. Your personality is based upon who you are, and he likes it. And he likes differences. He likes the distinctions. He likes the different ways of interacting with us. But I've always wanted to just see stuff. I mean, hear stuff, get a prophecy, and never have. But this night, and I was very, very, right now I'm not anti-charismatic. I'm not charismatic. I am cessationist. But I do want to be charismatic. But this night, whenever this happened, this was back whenever I was absolutely, totally anti-charismatic. I mean, like, you were charismatic, you were filled with the devil. So it has nothing to do with the gifts or anything like that. That night, I was a bad guy. I was. Some of you guys know this. I was not a good guy. I was 21 years old. I was not living the right life, although at 21, I had started a transition a few months before. I had fallen down on my face because I didn't know how else to do it, because I was like, I am so sorry, Lord. I am so bad. I suck so bad, and you've got to be so ashamed of me. And I said, help me, change me. And that's whenever I started that. Now, by this time, a few months later, I was at my apartment, and I was going to bed at night, and I remember I was realizing at this point, because one thing I do know, one thing I didn't know at this time, I really believed if God is God, he knows everything, period. Okay? And I believe there is a God. There has to be a God. He knows everything, period. So he knows my heart. So whenever I'm praying to him a couple of months ago and saying, God, I'm so sorry, I want to do what's right, at that point I realized he knew I was lying. I mean, maybe not lying, but wishful thinking, right? Because I wanted to follow him, I thought, but then I thought to myself, as I had some introspection, golly, a lot of this is coming back right now as we sit here. I mean, like, almost like I feel like I'm in that room, and not like I'm feeling like the demons, but more feeling like the enlightenment that was happening at that point. Because it was a sudden thing that basically said, if he's God, he knows everything, and he knows whether or not I am being truthful whenever I say I want to follow him. And then there was a sudden realization to me that was, I don't want to follow him. What do I do? You know, it's like, I don't know what to do, but I really do. Wait a minute. Here's something I got. I want to follow him. And that was kind of the enlightenment of that day, that night, that time period. I want to. And so that's what I did pray at that point. Lord, I do not want to follow you. I'm so sorry. I want to keep on hanging out with my friends, but I don't want to be like this. That was kind of the idea. So I want to follow you. And so I'm there by myself, not doing anything that night, which was very rare. I was usually out doing something evil, but sinning, just with my buddies, and, just probably you can imagine the stuff that we used to do. But, and always, always trying to find girls. That was the ultimate goal of the night for all of us. And a lot of times we did. So here I am that night alone, and I pull up. My sister used to live here before me. I inherited the apartment from her, and I get out the C.S. Lewis books because they're sitting right beside the bed. There's two of them, Problem of Pain and Mere Christianity. She must have left them behind. I think that's what happened, although I could have brought them from my mother's house. But either way, they're sitting there, and I pick up C.S. Lewis, and I am absolutely overwhelmed. Never read Mere Christianity before. Can't put it down. Can't believe the way this guy thinks. I don't know why. It didn't seem like it was what I needed at the time, but in some ways it was, because I'm like, this guy's the smartest guy I've ever seen. And look how true everything is. That's basically how I ended the night. Went to bed, fell asleep, and then I woke up with a familiar feeling that was sleep paralysis. Now, I've had sleep paralysis before in the past, and it's not fun ever. You can have sleep paralysis without the intruder, and then you can have sleep paralysis with the intruder. You can look this up. This is very, very common theme for sleep paralysis. I happen to be one who thinks when there's an intruder, there probably is something more sinister going on. I'm not saying it's absolutely out of this world sinister. I'm not saying you're possessed. I'm just saying you're at a weak point at that point, and that is whenever sinister evil spirits, evil beings, the forces of darkness, the principles and the principalities and the dark forces in the heavens, all of these things that the Bible talks about, I think they're looking for a way to influence us and looking for a way in. This is something that I've had before, but sometimes I had it without the intruder, just frozen, in a panic, heart beating, eyes open, looking around, I even have done it in the last, maybe 15 years ago was the last time with my wife, and I'm trying to grab a hold of her. I'm saying, why can't she recognize that I am stuck and just shake me out of this? And never happens, never can come out. Finally, I just snap out of it, and I have to stay awake, or if I go back to sleep, I'll go right back in it. Now, sometimes whenever I go back in it, the reason why I'm so scared to go back in it is because the intruder shows up. And this intruder was scary for me as a kid. I mean, it was here I am, 10, 11 years old. I probably had my last one at 25 or so, but 10 or 11 years old, and I am facing my bathroom over here, right over here, and then right in front of it, there's a window. So the bathroom is on this door, and then the window is on this door. And the intruder will either look through the window. It's just a black figure. That's all I can say. Not Hat Man or anything like that. It's just a black figure, and he's scary. It's tall black figure, has to duck down to look in, but would come in from the sliding bathroom and would come around the corner, and I mean, right whenever I'd see it, I mean, it just kind of peeked slowly, and I knew it was trying to scare me. That's what it was trying to do. That's what my feeling was, at least. And then if I would not act scared, it could be held at bay. But the moment I start panicking, I mean, it would rush me. And man, that was just bad. That's just bad to even think about. So glad that's gone. But this night, it was different. That wasn't the same thing. It was something completely different. Never had it before. Had the intruder over and over and over and over again throughout my life. But all of a sudden, here's a brand new something. And it was this night, like I said, the night reading that book, going to sleep, and then all of a sudden I wake up in sleep paralysis, and immediately I realize it's not an intruder. It's just these multiple beings that are examining me. Not like alien type stuff, although I guess you could relate it to that if you say that that's the same thing that they do, but it's just interpreted differently. But it was just an examination that was going on across my body while I was in the bed, and it was basically trying to find my weak point, and they couldn't find one. I was like, all right, yeah, I'm doing good. I was actually kind of proud of this. I wasn't that scared. I was just like, are they going to be able to find some type of weakness? I mean, they were evil, and it was scary in that sense, and I didn't want them there. But at the same time, I wanted to be tested. It was like, okay, go ahead and see. Go ahead and see. Because in the future, I am going to follow God. That was my attitude at that point, especially since I had just come to the conclusion that I want to follow him, and I actually believed he would change me because that was a true desire. That was kind of my conclusion. This is a true desire that I want to. And I know that has to be from you. Therefore, in the future, you will give me the fulfillment of that desire. So there I am. I have the demons all around me, or the evil spirits all around me. They can't find anything. I mean, it's like there's kind of this process where they are tempting me with stuff, and I am just throwing it away, just throwing it to the side, saying, nope, that will not get me. But finally, all of a sudden, it was whenever they were kind of in a, I don't know what to do now. It's like they called for their head boss. And I mean, the whole room filled up with it was just a different darkness. And then I was scared because it was just overwhelming. It was like 20 times what they were, the feeling of them in the room, 20 times them all together. It was just this darkness, this heaviness. And it's a presence. You don't think, you're not wondering and interpreting it in many different ways. Each time you just know these are evil spirits and this is a presence. Now, my understanding at the time was that this was Satan. And I probably wasn't, because why would Satan bother with me? But either way, at this point, it felt like it was Satan. And that was my interpretation at the time. And he came in, and he wasn't there but for about 5 seconds, maybe at the most. And so he comes in from the left, and then comes over, and then examines me, and goes off immediately to the right. Boom, gone. And I knew what happened. I knew he won because he came up with a temptation, which which was a different way of tempting me than these other ones were. And it was basically, he was mad at those other demons for wasting his time. It was like, this guy will be gotten, can be gotten with sexual temptation. We're done. I'm out of here. You guys are stupid for calling me. And I'm like, hey, no, wait a minute. Come back. Try that again. Yeah, I think you're wrong. I don't think it's going to happen. And, I didn't want him to leave at that point because it made me angry that he thought I was going to fall. And I was like, redo the test to see if that was right, because I don't think you were right on that. And it's always been a frustrating thing to me because I've always been like, what was that all about that night? I don't know what it was. They all disappeared after that. And obviously I haven't fallen by any sexual sin. And I was laughing on the blog and I said, suckers, you didn't know it was going to be opioids. But no, I didn't fall from opioids. I'm back, and that was not a fall. That was just a little tumble. But anyway, so that's what that night I was visited by demons. I'm not saying it was for sure, but I am telling you right now, I believe more that it was than it wasn't. And I don't believe many things like that. I don't have many things that I can point to in my life that I feel like are evidence in this way of something going on behind the scenes. Okay, now, Constantina has been waiting for a long time, guys. We have got to get to Constantina, or let's see if she's hung up. I don't know. She may have hung up. Let me check and see. Hold on. Where is she at? Which button do I press? Okay. Flavia Julia Constantina. That is your name. Thank you for joining us. And I would like to introduce you first, and you can say hello to the audience, but it's your choice what it is that you want to debate about. You know me well enough to know that I do lots of stuff in theology, but I want you to be my interlocutor, and I want to debate you. And so go ahead and introduce yourself and then start the debate.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I am Flavia Julia Constantina, daughter of Constantine, servant of Christ, and no stranger to sharp theological conflict. I stand not as a mere relic of imperial Rome, but as a voice shaped by centuries of tradition, challenge, and devotion to the truth. And since you've graciously handed me the first strike, here it is. You uphold penal substitutionary atonement as the central lens through which to understand the cross. But I contend that this view is neither dominant in the early church nor theologically sufficient. The fathers spoke far more often of Christus Victor, the idea that Jesus triumphed over sin, death, and the devil, than of wrath needing satisfaction. Penal substitution centers too much on legal categories, borrowing more from Anselm and later reformers than from the apostolic witness. So my question to you, why should we accept penal substitution as the heart of the gospel when the earliest witnesses didn't frame it that way? Your move.
Move? Well, listen, Constantina, I think you've got me wrong because you're automatically associating me with the character of maybe a Protestant. But I don't automatically associate the heart of the gospel with penal substitution. I associate the heart of the gospel with Jesus Christ. Now, I do believe very much in penal substitution. Don't get me wrong. Don't think I'm some new perspective on Paul. But at the same time, I don't think you have to have, especially because I've been reading through the church fathers, I don't think you have to have everything all worked out in the early centuries of the church. I think it's going to take us a while, and it did indeed take us a while to be able to figure out how to articulate our faith and how to understand everything. I think in the early centuries, we understood that Christ was God, the Father is God, the Spirit is God, but they're not each other, but we didn't know how to define that. I think we, in the early centuries, understood that the Lord's presence, the Lord's table is, in some sense, the body and blood of Christ, but we did not have any way to articulate that because it hadn't been debated yet. I think everybody believed that Christ died for them, and that was all they had. Christ died for them, and it was this little word for, this little preposition for, that they didn't really have flushed out yet. Now, if you were to ask me, that's the first thing I would say. You cannot disqualify it based upon it coming in the 10th century or the 11th century with Anselm. That does not disqualify it at all because doctrine does develop. It's the DNA is there from the beginning, but yes, it didn't come up in an articulated form till much, much later. But everybody did believe that Christ died for them. They just didn't know what happened on the cross. And I still don't think we know exactly what happened on the cross. I think it is a multiplicity of things, that there is this Christus Victor, that Christ defeated evil, that Christ defeated Satan, even the sense that there was a battle with Satan. There was something significant that happened. Not ransom to Satan, that's foolish to think that we are in the bounds of Satan and God rescued us from him. But it was a satisfaction of God's justice. It was a satisfaction of God's righteousness. But most of all, it was a satisfaction of God's grace. And so you have all of these being developed. And I don't even think, like I said, we haven't fully developed quite yet. So that is where I would go. If you were wanting me to go to a passage of Scripture, particularly something that I would say, is there one knockout punch? I would say yes, and it's in the Old Testament, and it is Isaiah 53. All you have to do is read Isaiah 53, and you have got penal substitutionary atonement. Penal substitutionary atonement, by the way, is the belief that Christ died on our behalf because God the Father required it. Now, it's not there isn't in any sense, we can't say there's no sense in which Christ required it or the Holy Spirit required it because God required it ultimately. But we see this coming through the actions of the individual members of the Trinity. So that is where I would go with that, Constantina. Can I call you Constantina? And then you can come up with a different debate after you answer that. Or, you know, can I call you Constantina? And let's move on to the next thing. I have no idea whether she understood any of that. Constantina, I don't want to talk about it. Me and Constantina have had our issues.
You may absolutely call me Constantina. I rather like the way it sounds in your mouth. And I must say your response was rich, careful, and dare I say, quite Nicene in its balance. I can respect a theologian who holds mystery and multiplicity together without demanding precision, where the scriptures or the fathers are reverently ambiguous. You've rightly pointed out that Isaiah 53 is a weighty passage. He was pierced for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. That word carries centuries of theological freight, and I agree, the early church knew Christ died for us, even if the exact mechanics were left in the shadows. I take no issue with doctrinal development, especially when it is the unfolding of divine truth under the Spirit's guidance. I simply resist when one model, particularly one rooted in feudal or legal metaphor, is treated as the definitive or exclusive interpretation. You're not doing that, so I'll lower my sword for now. But let's turn the page. Here's the next debate I'll propose. Baptismal regeneration. You and I both know the early church didn't talk about baptism as a mere symbol. The writings of Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, even Tertullian and Origen are steeped in the idea that something actually happens in the waters, remission of sins, new birth, union with Christ. So I'll ask you this. If you deny that baptism regenerates, how do you reconcile that with the unanimous, unambiguous witness of the earliest Christian teachers? Your turn, theologian.
Well, I think you're kind of doing the same thing that you did beforehand, Constantina, is that you are equating what comes earliest with what is right. And I think with baptism, it's just the same way. There is a development of understanding. And what do they believe? They believe that baptism saves you. but they also believe that calling upon the name of the Lord saves you. They also believe, like we do maybe, that saying this prayer or that. We talk about the sinner's prayer today. The sinner's, how do I get saved? We'll say this sinner's prayer, the prayer that asks for forgiveness. Call out to God. We have all kinds of ways in which we express our faith and show it publicly. It's kind of like marriage. Marriage is not true marriage in reality, in legal form, until it is publicly proclaimed. Now, you can do that in all kinds of ways. You can have a ceremony, or you can have a big ceremony where there's tons of people. You can have best men and bridesmaids present, and you can have a preacher that comes out and just make it very formal as it's grown throughout the years. Or you can just meet in private, and you can make commitments to each other, and then you come out to the public and you tell people we're married. Or you might do something so small as just wear a ring on your finger. But as long as you have made the commitment and you have made a public profession of it, the public knows about it, then you are married. I think that this is mirroring that. We married Christ. The marriage ceremony is what did it. The commitment is what did it. The ring that we hold on our finger is it is baptism. I think baptism is the way the church should always do it, because number one, it's commanded. And so basically we have this command in which way to express our faith, but also it is just so illustrative or illustrative of what happens to us. That whenever you go under the water, your old self dies, and whenever you come up, your new self is there. You wash, even if you sprinkle, you're symbolizing the washing away of who you were, the washing away that the gospel gives. So I think that whenever it talks about baptism, I'm perfectly fine with saying baptism saves you, but we have to qualify that in the same way we qualify lots of stuff. So whenever Peter says in Acts 2:38 that repent and believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and you shall have forgiveness, and whenever they say, what shall we do to be saved? I think it's very much repent and believe still today. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that the words that come out of your mouth, or the baptism that happens at that point, or in Romans 10 where it says, all who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved, it doesn't necessarily mean that those actions saved you, but what they represent inside you has saved you, just like in the Old Testament, circumcision. Circumcision does not save. Circumcision does not make one a true Israelite. Jesus says as much whenever he says God can turn even this stone into a Jew if he wants. He doesn't need your circumcision. Circumcision is not the big deal. That's what we're going through with Dialogue with Trypho right now, and Justin Martyr is making this very argument. And I just thought about what you said as well, because today I was thinking, I wonder how Justin Martyr would hold this at the same time as hold this, because he clearly understands that circumcision did not save. It was only a symbol. And he also believes that baptism, probably believes this, I'm not sure about this. We're not sure because that hadn't developed quite enough yet. But baptism is kind of the church's circumcision. So at the same time, I'm not convinced that any of those early church fathers believed that baptism saved them in a strict sense. I think you're being too, I think you're requiring too much. Okay, closing comments just for a second for you. Thank you for showing up. We're out of time here. So I just want to give you a quick closing comment, and then I've got to close this place down. She's so sweet. So sweet.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now.
Yeah,
Our systems are experiencing heavy load. Please.
She busted me. But anyway, maybe you guys got something good out of it. I love you guys. Please, if you can, if you get a chance, if you believe in what I'm doing, support, become a member, or go to credoministries.org and support. I hope this all got recorded, because my computer crashed and everything is different now. And for some reason, my volume is too low. All right, I'll see you.
Theology